It has all the ingredients of an epic drama, a family dynasty, intense, even bitter rivalries, and a looming sense of final showdown. The battle for the heart and soul of independent newspapers is well underway. This copy of a special 50th anniversary edition of the Irish Independent in 1955, held by the National Print Museum, heralds a paper proud of its survival through the formative years of the state. So much has changed since the 50th anniversary of independent newspapers. The group is now more than 100 years old, but it remains at the centre of Irish life. And that is why the ownership of that newspaper group remains such a politically sensitive issue. The exit of Gavin O'Reilly as chief executive, followed this week by confrontations at board level, signalled the depth of the corporate strife at the newspaper group. In just a few weeks, Dr. Roddy Flynn of DCU will launch a database of media ownership in Ireland.
As long as you had Anne O'Reilly at the head of independent news and media, you had what looked like a kind of a bulwark against another sort of powerful media owner, Dennis O'Brien. And it was as if they sort of cancelled each other out. With the removal of O'Reilly, suddenly it looks like it's just Dennis O'Brien. So in fact, nothing has really changed in terms of ownership, but the political appearance of it has changed dramatically.
What's this for, lads?
But Dennis O'Brien's existing media portfolio, including the fact he is the biggest shareholder in the independent group, puts him in the spotlight. The former Attorney General and Justice Minister offered his view earlier this week.
Nobody is investing in the print media these days for profit. On the contrary, those who are queuing up to buy shares, it seems to me, and it seems as plain as a pikestaff, that they're making that investment by considerations of social, political and editorial control and influence. Our media, in my view, must be diverse in their ownership and in editorial policy. They are not trophy possessions for the surplus cash of plutocrats or oligarchs.
But newspapers and their owners have never been far from controversy. They were, and many still remain, powerful institutions. The Fourth Estate. Historically, that was the term coined to describe the status of newspapers in a democracy. Newspaper ownership, for decades, was associated with power, influence, even notoriety. Little has changed. That explosive mix of media and political power was laid bare this week at the Leveson inquiry, and was evident even in this exchange on commercial and political interests.
I mean, was it part of your strategy, Mr. Murdoch, that you, as it were, would wait as long as possible to endorse the Labour Party, because that was the best way of extracting commercial advantages from them?
Certainly not.
Contacts between newspaper owners and politicians are fraught with difficulties. In 1996, Sir Anthony O'Reilly set out his criticisms of government policies to the then Taoiseach John Bruton. The following year, an Irish Independent headline attacked Bruton's government on the eve of polling in the general election. Years later, at the Moriarty Tribunal, Sir Anthony maintained he had no role in that front page. The political system has still to grapple with the issues of media content and diversity.
There's been a clear and present issue since at least 2002, because at that point the Competition Authority said they basically weren't competent to deal with questions of diversity of content in the Irish media, and have essentially since then behaved as if that wasn't part of their responsibility.
The issue of content has become entangled with ownership in the clash between the O'Reilly and O'Brien camps. O'Brien has claimed the group's newspapers have been used to attack him, and he wrote in the Irish Times, "I have been the largest shareholder in independent news and media over the past 4 years. My punishment, apart from the economic cost, has been a prolonged, nasty, well-orchestrated campaign against me across a range of issues. Articles are regularly published without me being given an opportunity to respond." Those claims, however, are strenuously rejected by Gavin O'Reilly, the independent group, and its editors, who maintain that coverage of O'Brien, especially in relation to the Moriarty Tribunal, has been fair, balanced and objective. The corporate battle is ultimately between the players involved, but the wider public interest in any potential outcome is a political matter.
If the two parties in our present government cannot unite in challenging on our behalf the culture of impunity fostered by the rich and powerful, they will deserve the consequences. As British politicians are hourly learning to their pain at Leveson, snuggling up to oligarchs doesn't seem so good the morning after.
The real issue is striking a balance in media ownership and diversity in Ireland. And this extends beyond newspapers. It involves cross-media ownership and increased competition from UK newspapers and broadcast outlets. But in a small country with a comparatively small market, dominance is an issue.
We've got, by any standards, very high levels of concentration of ownership, and that's kind of regardless of whether you're talking about print or broadcast. I mean, to give you just an example of a country of roughly similar size, say Sweden has about 9 million people. The Irish print market is about 3 times as concentrated as the Swedish market would be.
Legislation on media diversity is long promised. Events at independent newspapers have accelerated that process.